Welcome back to the Foolery Show, where two cynics desperately try to find the positive side of things. Today, we're talking about the domestication of animals. I think a lot of people like the idea of domestication, but don't like the work or the way people treated, and I think that's very subjective between things. But I think that domestication as a whole is a really strong concept, kind of a, in a way, symbiotic, but a win-win of two species working together to achieve a common goal. We keep them alive, they keep us alive. Win-win.
Yeah, working together depends on which animals you're talking about being domesticated. Like we were talking about in the factory farming episode, callback. I don't know if the
Nice.
chickens are really benefiting from us, keeping them in cages and stuff. I mean, we're keeping them alive for sure. We're breeding them. The species is continuing to live on, but I don't know how much benefit there really is in that besides the fact that they're still alive. We're literally using them for their meat, and that's it. It's kind of a one-way relationship. We literally only keep them alive so that they can, because we need them to be alive.
But isn't that okay? Is that not an okay way to exist? Why does anything exist? The chicken is a bird that can't fly. And it can't run that fast either. And it's not intelligent. And this is proven it's not intelligent because you can cut off its head and it'll still live. Actually, it really needs its brain to live. Intelligence is not part of its thing. Granted, one could say that over time, they're become, a little dumber in the factory farms, but come on. I guess what chance does the species have not domesticated?
Right, but the chicken that you're seeing today is also the result of like thousands of years of domestication, right? That's made the chicken this way. I'm pretty sure the chicken was doing just fine before humans stumbled upon it and started raising them. I don't think chickens were struggling out in the wild and the humans came down and they're like, I'm going to save you, chickens. I'm going to protect you from the predators of the jungle. And, in return for that, I'm going to eat you every so often.
I mean, I don't know the exact scientific, background of this stuff, but it could totally be just that humans saw this easily killable animal and thought it tasted good, and then they're like, wait, man, this animal just pumps out other. If you know what a chicken does and how many eggs a chicken can pump out, it's amazing. So maybe they just saw it as a good food source and just said, well, let's domesticate this. Let's see if we can find a way to work together here, because chickens are easily killable by other species, not only humans. So why don't we just, why don't they just help me instead of all the other animals? It doesn't have to be as malicious as you think it is. It could just be, I don't want to feed the rest of the forest.
I think the thought process you described was, this chicken is a pretty stable source of food. Let's keep it with us. I think that's exactly what they were thinking of. I mean, it's not necessarily malicious, but they definitely weren't thinking of the chicken's benefit when they were doing that. They were mostly thinking about how they could have a stable food source so they could survive.
That's the concept of domestication, right? You domesticated an animal so it can be used for you.
Right, but you said it was a symbiotic relationship where it goes both ways, right? I'm saying it mostly just goes the human's way.
Okay, well let's suggest. Okay, then you said it's symbiotic. Right? You're saying that I am definitely saying that there's a benefit both ways, and you're saying, well, I don't think so. But let's remove the chicken from the equation. Let's say, I don't know, beef was way better, just better in all aspects. So we never really domesticated chicken. What chance does a chicken have surviving in nature today? I would say low, especially as humans progressed and humans have moved around the globe for that. I think chickens would have just gone extinct anyways.
So you're saying if humans never domesticated chickens, we wouldn't have chickens today. They would be extinct.
I think that's not unfair. That's not unfair to say, I'd say.
I'm actually not sure what chickens were like a couple thousand years ago, but I mean, they weren't extinct by the time humans stumbled upon them. So they must have had some way to survive. There must have been some, natural selection there that allowed them to evolve and survive.
No, see, this is where I don't necessarily agree, because look at the panda. Right, you see the flip side of domestication, right? We breed and make chickens to eat, right? That's fine. Look at the panda. We keep the panda alive. The panda has no evolutionary advantages. The panda really should have died out a long time ago. But we keep it alive. We keep them alive. And what do they really do? They're really just really good lawnmowers of bamboo. They're really good. They eat like 16 hours a day, pass out, wake up, keep eating more bamboo. Right? Fantastic because bamboo grows so fast, but really not good at anything else. And also in captivity, or domesticated, they actually don't treat their young very well. Need a lot of human intervention. You know. So what's to say
Yeah,
that they would have gone, out of extinction? What's to say that their extinction was not a good thing?
yeah, I heard pandas do sometimes sit on their young, but I don't know if that's necessarily means that they need human intervention. I mean, there's plenty of animals out there, I think, that treat their young quite poorly. Like, I think alligators or crocodiles actually eat their babies. But I mean, I thought pandas were more endangered, or they weren't really necessarily procreating because a loss of environment. Like they like a lot of the bamboo forests or the mountains where they used to live in were being cut down and stuff. I guess what I'm saying is pandas lived for a long time before humans came around, right? So I mean, would they have just naturally just died out by not by themselves? I don't know. Usually species are go extinct due to a change of environment, or there's like a predator that like hunts them to extinction. A species doesn't just usually naturally just all of a sudden just stop procreating or go to extinct, quote quote, naturally.
I don't know. I mean, I think species go extinct naturally. I mean, it depends what you mean by natural, right?
I
Of
mean by
course,
without a change of environment or like in a or like an introduction of a new predator.
there are extinction events, sure, but that's what I'm saying. Like, the new predator could be someone else. What's right? You're saying an introduction of a new predator, right? But we are the predator,
We don't
right?
eat pandas though. We don't eat
But I'm
pandas.
saying that's what happened with chickens. We were the predator. We came up, and we would have driven them to extinction, but we decided not to.
Ah, okay. So you're saying we did the chickens a favor by not driving them to extinction. So by us domesticating them, we saved them from ourselves. We saved
I
them from
mean,
us.
that's technically true.
Yeah, that's technically
Um,
true.
but I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing that we have kept them alive, right? I think let's throw domestication off the table. Then yeah, chickens, that would be bad because I mean chicken fuels so much of our meat economy. You could say the chicken has allowed humanity to grow into the current modern society. Without that kind of readily available food, easily available food, I mean, humans would have never achieved what we've achieved.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Like if we didn't domesticate chickens, we just hunted them like we used to do. Probably chickens would probably be hunted to extinction in order to feed, because otherwise there's just not enough chickens that would procreate enough in the wild to feed all the humans. So they would probably would get hunted to extinction. So
But I think in that
yes,
respect, domestication is good, right?
yes, domestication is necessary in light of the human existence in order to preserve certain species. I mean, I guess another example of where domestication was really successful for a species would be dogs and cats. By far, dogs and cats are probably some of the most numerous animals on the planet, probably, and that is wholly due to domestication, right? And dogs and cats don't really need to work that hard to survive in current modern day, simply because humans will just take care of them, right? And what do the dogs and cats have to do? Like literally nothing. Like some of these pets are so pampered. So I would say domestication was probably very beneficial for certain pets. I would say, particularly dogs and cats.
But one could also, argue that maybe that's not a good thing. Maybe it's not a good thing because the dog is, could the dog survive by itself?
I mean, there are wild dog species, so dogs could survive in the wild. Obviously, a current domesticated dog has lost a lot of those instincts and probably couldn't survive in the wild. But there are wild dog packs that do survive in the wild. So if we never domesticated them, then they would probably be able to survive in the wild.
Okay, but then you see the kind of weird way domestication can be used and used. But really, really, what we're doing to these animals is we're just basically saying, you're mine now. Where can dogs? I mean, yes, there do exist wild dogs and wild cats, but where do they realistically live? They realistically exist for our purpose. We don't necessarily eat their flesh, or maybe some parts of the world do, but majority don't. But they're basically born and bred for our own emotional needs or desire to have a dog. Isn't that just as cruel as eating someone's flesh?
That's an interesting point because by being pets, they're pretty much giving up all of their own volition, and I guess maybe liberty. Maybe that's a little too heavy of a term to use here. Independence, let's say they're giving up their independence essentially, and so I guess it's a give and take, right? You're giving up your independence for comfort, a home, not needing to search for food or fight for survival in the wild. Maybe that's something that they would take. Well, nature is pretty cruel, so maybe that's something that they're willing to do. They're willing to give up. Obviously, we'll never know because we can't ask animals that. But seems like sleeping all day in someone's home seems like a pretty nice deal to me.
Exactly. So what's wrong with that? So if we don't like the idea of eating, but if we deconstruct what eating is we're born in we're breeding animals to be purposed for our uses, whatever they may be. Granted, maybe we're saying that living longer is better, but we're still breeding them for our own purposes, our own selfish reasons. Yeah, there may be a distinction between eating and keeping someone in prison, but I think that's a different argument entirely. Whether imprisoned for life, I mean, you're right. Then you're saying what's the difference between imprisoned for life or dying in kind of prime of life? And outside of the natural curve of things, nature isn't a pretty sight. Nature is incredibly rough. If you have no purpose, you can't do what you need to do. You're done. It's not kind of evil. It's not kind of cruel. It's just kind of absolute. You can either survive or not, and then you just die. Your whole species goes extinct. There's no assistance. There's no humanity to nature. It's just kind of is or it isn't. And by removing these animals from that kind of cycle, we've given them kind of this whole benefit to being perpetually alive. They will continue to exist as long as we exist, which is kind of a weird gift in the whole spin of things. Maybe animal conditions could be better or more humane. They're still better off than the wild.
Yeah,
Is
I
that
suppose
is
it
that
depends
wrong?
on how you measure the success of a species. Probably if a species is numerous and they're like across the planet, they're living healthy and relatively long lives, and they're continuing to reproduce, right, at a good pace. At least by the metrics of nature and natural selection and evolution, I mean that species is incredibly fit or successful. So in that sense, domestication is very beneficial for dogs and cats and strictly in those kinds of terms. Yeah, in terms of giving up independence though, that's the hard part when it comes to using that argument for these animals because we can't ask a dog what it wants. We can't really know. We can interpret and guess, but we can't actually know what a dog would do if it was actually does out in the wild. So
I mean,
um,
but isn't that technically like personification of animals or creatures that don't have person things? Aren't we assigning these person-like traits to animals that don't necessarily have this? I mean, sure. Do they have emotions? Sure. Do they have these things? Sure. But aren't we kind of going above and beyond here? Like I feel like if we treat this from a purely objective standpoint. So let's say you're looking for evolutionary, how widespread is it, right? Just like you said, how widespread is it? How far is it gone? Let's say, what hope does chicken, let's say, something happens to the planet, right? Maybe global warming, maybe asteroids. There's a whole plethora of things. Let's say something happens. What chance, what evolutionary advantage does a chicken have at overcoming that? And I think, I don't think it's unfair to say almost none. But let's say they become, I mean, let's use some gross terms, subservient and just food fodder for humans. People say that's gross, that's horrible. But now, let's say we can go to space, we can defend the planet against them. They've actually gained this evolutionary advantage of being extremely useful to another species. So much so going that they can now live perpetually. Think about it. Isn't that the height of a species? Being able to consistently reproduce and be persistent throughout time. Most species never get that chance. They never even come close. They have to fight and claw for everything they ever get. But these species, they have some sort of advantage, and it's a mutual relationship. and that's how we're moving forward. Right? No one made these rules. Humans just happen to like chicken. We could have thought chicken was terrible, and it would not even be a discussion. Right? Dogs, dogs are actually predatory, right? Dogs can kill humans. Chickens can't really kill humans. They're not a real threat. But dogs can absolutely kill humans. Cats, I mean, big cats can kill humans. So we've just developed some kind of mutual relationship, and we're perpetuating it through. What hope does a cat or dog have going through the cosmos? I think most people would say none at all. But with humans being kind of there, being connected with humans, I think they have the biggest advantage of all. They can do anything now. Some would say even they have it better than even humans. Some humans here.
Yeah, some pets are definitely spoiled and live better lives than humans. Yeah, I suppose by being domesticated, they've essentially chained their fates to humans. So if humans are very successful, they will continue to flourish and also be successful. But let's say humans go extinct, well, let's just say dogs will probably not survive that long in the wild without humans, or at least a lot of them won't survive. But let's say for chickens, for example, let's say they are being abused and live short lives and stuff, but we keep them around because they're a good source of food. Is that really a success of the species if every member of the species lives lives full of suffering and pain, but the species continues to procreate and continues to live on? They don't go extinct, perhaps for hundreds of years, thousands of years, and so on. But every member of that species lives painful lives. Is that really a success of the species then?
I think that's a god complex. Now you're becoming God. So now you're saying, oh, if a life is generated and a life does not have a good life, is that a good life? Is that a life even worth having? But I think that's personification. I think the whole concept of having a good life is not a natural thing. That's not a nature agreed thing. Nature doesn't give you the deal of having a nice life. That's not part of the contract. Coming into existence, having a good life is a purely human thing. Good is a subjective term by itself, by the way. And all these things we attribute to it are kind of luxuries. They're kind of niceties to have. Things that make life a smoother or in our term, nicer, easier experience. But who's to say what's better for them? Who's to say? I think you're making a big assumption about what's good for them, especially when dealing with pure nature.
I mean, there are some things we can point to, right? Like they probably have shorter lifespans. I mean, I'm pretty sure we could tell whether they're in pain or not. We know the lives they're supposed to lead in nature, and we can see like how we treat them in certain environments. It's very diametrically opposed to that. And like, let's say we put humans in this position. Let's say an alien species comes and does to us what we do to chickens. I feel like our perspective does the same question applies. Let's say the alien species keeps us around for hundreds and thousands of years, and now we get interstellar travel because aliens are taking us across the galaxy, but we lose all full independence. We're just used for food. Everyone leaves miserable lives of slavery and so on. We're just used as cattle. Is that a success of our species that the alien species consider us valuable enough to domesticate and not just blow up our planet and make us extinct? Or are we all just now the worse for it now? Is extinction preferable as opposed to, just being used essentially by a higher species?
I think it really depends on what you think is fair and unfair when being used by another species. We may be like, for example, let me hit a little bit home. So, alien species is a great example, but we could even say like, what is a human body? Is it just a human body? Aren't there bacteria and viruses that feed on us? Right? What if they were keeping us alive for certain things too? I mean, what's to say that we're not just keeping something other element? What if we're on a big TV show, or what is already happening, right? So it seems terrible because we are cognizant of what a good life is in our subjective reality, right? Oh, I want to have a big house. Oh, I want to have, cocaine and hookers, or right? I want to have these things, and that's what makes a life good. But if you remove those things, it begins to kind of fade away. with what it is, right? Especially for a non, we're an animal that has a lot of brain intelligence. We're very aware of what's going on, so you can really torture a human. I feel like you can't necessarily as well torture other animals because they just don't have as much as we do. Granted, that's a subjective thing that you cannot entirely prove or disprove. But I think that's kind of where we've gained in the, I guess, not the animal kingdom, but the whole food chain, right? And let's say that there becomes another animal on top of us. Then it would be only fair to let them, to have them do the same to us. And is that successful as a species? I think it is. I think it is unsuccessful as a species if we get phased out. Like, what if aliens came here, decided they didn't like us, and killed us all? So you're saying our species would be successful? I don't think that's success. Your species is gone. your species is no more. How can that be successful? I mean, maybe there are levels to success, but I think if you go extinct, that's failure.
So you're saying being used by the alien species is preferable to extinction?
I think to some extent, yes. Because why? I mean, yes. We have lots of mythology around alien species. I guess it depends how we're being used, right?
All right, I would say in the worst way possible, not as in they're like treating us as equals and stuff. Essentially, what we're doing to chickens would be my example.
I mean, then I think then it comes down to what makes your then I think the reality comes down to is why is your species so advantageous? You need to, and that's a lot of people think they can't control anything. The world is uncontrollable. There's nothing they can do. But in reality, everyone is their own little mutant, their own little augmentation, and it depends on what will make our species advantageous. Everyone believes different things, right? Is it our greed? I know humans are greedy, but maybe that's what they like, or maybe they like how us Americans consume a scary amount of food for no apparent reason, right? It depends what you want to be known for. What do you want your species to be known for, and who governs this? A lot of these pushing these things is the government, right? And that's why people vote in the government, because you want to change how your society is controlled. Who's to say? Maybe aliens come and they're like, these Americans are too fat. I don't like them. They're not healthy for me. And that's it. Right? It could be that. And maybe we like these Europeans. Or maybe we like these third world countries because they're a little healthier for us. The meat's a little better. And we could be doing it all wrong. Right? It's true. But I think that is a consideration of someone who's in the food chain. And we've kind of transcended that a bit. We've transcended the food chain. We're still not, everyone's like, we're apex, there's no one above us. I think that's kind of a bold thing to say. If we are immortal beings that were gods, then I think that's fair to say that you're top. We're not. We still die. And we still die, we don't live that long. Right? So, I mean, I think that this is kind of like a stepping stone to something much greater. Is there still room to better treat animals? Sure. I don't think domestication is bad. I don't think that this concept is bad. I think this, teamwork, makes the dream work.
Well, I guess depends on where you draw the line.
But isn't that always how it is? Thanks for listening. Like, subscribe, and let us know what we should talk about next.